And from ABSA, going the extra mile to get you financed.
When the special vehicle competitors lined up in Darling in February, Brandon Harkis's championship-winning Bat Racing Mark had a new challenger.
The Century Racing team had built a new Class A car, which made its debut in the Western Cape in the hands of Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar. The special sported a radical design.
But they'd have to contend with a host of fine teams, Shamir Bariawa and Siegfried Rousseau in the Total Motorsport Porter.
Motorites Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman are the reigning SA champs and look set to clash with Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in the Regent Racing Bat. Former SA champ Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald also in Regent colours, and Nodis Alberts and Colin Hunter's Rapsa Bat, together with the Atlas Copcos bearing Nick Harper and Gary Berthold, who are also expected to be a factor. Former SA champs Karl Heinz and Herman Sulwalt were again campaigning Zarkos under the Sulwalt Transport banner.
On the Class B front, champions Jan and Hendrik Kraai, who dominated last season in a Regent Racing Bat, brought in Tito Vogt to navigate.
And Class B replaced Class S at the end of the season. The new category is for normally aspirated cars with an engine capacity not bigger than 4,000 cc's.
From the off in the Western Cape, it was Variawa and Rousseau who led off the brigade in their big 7-litre Porter Special.
They had a 23-second prologue lead over big Brandon Harkis and the crafty customer Richard Leek in the silver and black motorite Bat. It was certainly purring along beautifully. It's a very huge engine. It's in fact a big beat Chev 6.6 motor.
Naeem Musaji and Rehan Bodhania were third after the 70k prologue in their tyre rack Jimco. And with a Chev 5.7-litre power, it was an awesome sight as it jumped the humps and bumps.
Gary Berthold and newcomer Rally Supremo Pierre Uries in the Azure Blue Atlas Copco came by next.
Karl Heinz Sulwalt and son Quinton had a great win here last year and turned out in screaming canary yellow. The Sulwalt Zarko Magnum LS1 with its big Chevy engine looked menacing.
However, the season started on a cautionary note. Hutchinson and Bergman rolled their motorite back. Naeem Musaji subsequently hit them, and that large column of smoke meant that 1 million rands worth of motorite investment was going up in it.
Up ahead, though, Harkis Lee, with some real crafty maneuvers up his sleeve, was getting Harkis to go quickly.
But it was Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald who were laying down the rubber. Regent Racing's former national champion impressing all the way.
With Ruacon CEO Peter Ruthven and his co-driver Johan Boshoff also catching the eye with a solid showing, moving up into the top 5.
The specials have natural air conditioning, no windscreen, thus they're heavily affected by the dust. And in the Darling area it was bad, but Whitehouse and his brother-in-law Carlson never batted an eyelid.
And leading in Class P, it was brothers Johan and Etienne Bezuidenhout in the Adenko Bat.
Variawa and Rousseau got it going and were on a mission to at least get a top 10 after their earlier tangles with disaster.
And they were well on their way to doing just that.
Whitehouse and Carlson here very ably demonstrated just how tough conditions were. Dusty, dry, loose sand. And if you're not careful, you could be camping out there for a while.
And the thing to remember is that the dust doesn't just affect visibility. It gets into moving parts, grinds down, and stresses cooling systems.
Here, the brothers Gary and David won't give you a first-hand experience of just what happens out there. To slow over the sand, and you get stuck and rev, rev, and rev.
And a bit more revving, and, well, then the roof opens. Time to start digging. It's not pretty.
The Sulwalts were quickly working their way up the batting order and up into the top 5, making mincemeat of the notorious Western Cape Sand themselves.
Cully's brother Herman and his co-driver Paul Helberg in the blue Zarko Magnum were closing in on them in turn.
In the B class, it was pure class from Bezuidenhout and De Bruin, who finished 5th in the specials. One heck of a performance.
With Giel Nel and Dion de Kamp second, but a distant 25 minutes behind.
And trying to hold off a charging Ruacon back after the Whites had extricated themselves.
Alistair Stubbs and Mark de Chalane kept plugging away and got 10th place for dogged determination.
With Nick Gosler and Richard Carolyn showing the same qualities in Class B in second with their Raceco and its Porsche engine.
at the line after 400 of the driest Ks the boys had raced for a while. It was former driver champion Terence Marsh and Peter Groenewald who took the win.
And the surprise package of the race, Ruthven and De Waal in the Rurikon bat.
Only 94 seconds separated the two cars after all of that, and the Sulvold siblings had a fine old dice for third, with Cully and Quinton prevailing.
In poker parlance, a full house for Marsh and Groenewald, but most of the fancied names got some bum cards and were nowhere to be seen after the first points of the 08 season had been calculated.
The talk of the town, though, was that the Century Property CR1 Special of Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzer, sporting its radical design, failed to get past the prologue after a power steering pipe buzzed, and they couldn't repair it in time. The car, built in-house, incorporated an innovative four-wheel drive system and a chassis engine gearbox layout not yet seen locally.
When the circus moved to Port Elizabeth, it was Gary Bertolt and Andre Vermeulen who led away the procession. You can justifiably call Bertolt the prologue king. He's won a few in his time.
And they were certainly very happy to be dust-free right at the top of the result sheet and took full advantage.
In the Longmore Forest, that big Copco's huge 7-litre engine was grinding its way around, while their Copco stablemates Nick and son Ryan Harper left the line.
They were the championship runners-up last year, and it was a close-run affair as the Harpers stepped up their performance a notch and became contenders. Here they were again.
Cully and Quinton Sulvold were looking for win number 2 on their CV and were perfectly placed to start making a gap for the written word.
Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell stormed by next and were 5th. Their bat was looking perfectly set up for the fast stuff in the Eastern Province.
Marsh and Groenewald in the blue and yellow Regent Racing bat with its 2-litre Corvette engine had moved up, and the former national champ was looking to go 2 for 2.
Corbett and Balzar were over their darling disappointment after their new chariot broke down. But here in the forests, they were doing some low-level flying.
Young Cry is known as a man who understands how to drive a car through to the end, and the Keymax bat seemed to know it too. He was leading Class B.
In the new P class, the Bezetanotes were tripping along nicely, keeping their Rodenko bat out of trouble, and then promptly slipped a gear. Happens in the best of families.
David White with Bevan and Gary's dad, Bodo Bertolt, at his side were keeping the youngsters on their toes, second in Class P.
And then to Class B, it was the Rurikon bat of De Bruyn and Brits who were making the pace and making their way up the order at the same time.
With light rain sifting down at times, and after the designated service point halfway through the 430 Ks worth of tough racing, Marsh and Groenewald were still holding station in 7th.
But they were being chased. Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar had clawed their way from 8th overnight to get into 3rd place in the specials.
While the Sulvolds were in a superb position, they had time to spare over Marsh and Groenewald. In fact, 2 minutes and 47 seconds to be exact.
Gibson and Campbell were firmly ensconced in the top 5, but had to stay ahead of the Harpers. They only had 15 minutes to play with.
But they were not playing. The Harpers were indeed determined to make up for that did not finish next to their name in the Western Cape.
While Herman Sulvold and Paul Helberg were 5th in Class A, making it a really fine day for the Sulvold family.
And in Class P, it was the 2 Dons, Thompson and Blake, who outlasted the rest, the only finisher in the category.
Variauer and Rousseau trundled into view next. Now they'd started off in 38th place, eaten dust all day, and there they were, up into 6th.
Whitehouse and Carson in the 2nd Regent Racing bat was 7th in class, and it made some of the bigger name teams sit up and take notes.
But to Cully and Quinton Sulvold went the accolades. They worked hard for a 2-minute 47-second victory worth 25 points and worth its weight in gold.
Variawa and Rousseau will still be reeling their bad prologue run, which gave them no hope of victory.
But the flag had hardly dropped on the season, and there were still 6 races to go.
With only 2 under the belt, though, it was 05 champ Marsh who was pace setting, but there was only 4 points in it, as Cully saw what's one edged him up.
We'll keep reviewing right after this.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Going